Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually, we're tearing apart complex tech trends
Mhm.
or trying to understand ancient history. But today we're looking at something that is literally staring us in the face.
Oh, yeah. It's everywhere right now.
Every time you walk into a hip coffee shop or a boutique hotel or even just scroll through your Instagram feed,
You really can't escape the glow.
no, you can't. We're talking about neon signs today.
Mhm.
And I have to admit, when I first saw the research packet for this deep dive, I thought, okay, neon signs, you buy one, you plug it in, and it glows.
Right.
What is there to deep dive into
Mhm.
exactly? It felt like a topic that might be a bit shallow.
And that is the exact trap everyone falls into.
Really?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
seems like a super simple decoration choice, but it's actually this massive minefield of spatial geometry and optical illusion and consumer psychology.
I realized that about halfway through reading the source material you sent over, specifically that guide called The Art of Proportion Sizing, Your Neon Sign and Those Industry Standards from
Mhm.
Sart Neon, I realized reading through that stuff that I have absolutely no idea how to size things in my own house.
Most people don't. I mean, we've essentially lost our ability to judge physical scale.
We really have.
Yeah.
Because we've all seen it happen, right? You walk into a room, maybe it's an Airbnb, and you see a neon sign on the wall.
Yeah.
And sometimes it just looks incredible. It feels high-end. It anchors the room. It gives you that specific vibe that makes you want to immediately take a photo.
It feels intentional, almost like architecture.
Exactly like architecture.
Yeah.
But then other times, and I think this happens way more often than I'd like to admit, you see a sign and it just looks cheap.
Yeah, it really does.
It looks like a glowing sticker just slapped on a massive wall.
Hmm.
It feels dinky. And until I read through these guides today, I couldn't articulate why some look so expensive and some look like a mistake.
Well, the secret is that it's almost never about the color or the font. It's not even about the message itself. It is almost always entirely about the scale. It's what we call the Goldilocks dilemma.
The Goldilocks dilemma. I love that we are applying fairy tale logic to interior design today. Break that down for us.
Well, it's that classic problem of finding what is just right. When people buy neon, especially online, which is frankly where 90% of this happens, they usually fall into two very specific psychological camps.
Okay.
Camp A is what I like to call the timid decorator.
The timid decorator. I feel seen already.
Most of us are. These are the people who are afraid of overwhelming their space. Or honestly, they're just looking at the price tag and trying to save a few bucks.
Sure, neon isn't super cheap.
Right, so they buy something small, they see 24 inches on the website and
Like
think,
2 feet. That's huge.
exactly, they think 2 feet is the size of a toddler.
Right, you hold your hands out 2 feet apart in your living room and you think, man, that is a lot of space.
But then they take that 24-inch sign and they put it on a 12-foot wide living room wall. And what happens?
It completely vanishes.
It vanishes. It doesn't look like art anymore. It just looks like visual clutter. It becomes this weird, floating, glowing speck in a giant sea of drywall.
It's like wearing a hat that's 3 sizes too small. It just highlights how big the head is.
That is a perfect analogy. And then on the other side, you have Camp B, the overcompensator.
Let me guess. These are the go big or go home people.
Precisely. They want a statement piece, so they treat their living room wall like it's a billboard in Times Square. They
Right.
just buy the biggest physical thing that fits on the wall, and then you walk in and the room feels totally claustrophobic because this massive glowing object is just screaming at you.
It's aggressively bright. You sit on the couch and feel like you need sunglasses just to watch TV.
Exactly. So our mission today is to find the math that gets you to just right. And I was genuinely surprised diving into this to find that there is actual math here.
Yeah.
This isn't just about having a good eye for design. There are hard ratios involved.
I love when we can apply concrete rules to art. It makes me feel much more confident about drilling holes in my own drywall.
It takes the guesswork out.
So let's start with the biggest takeaway I found in the sources. This kind of serves as the baseline for everything else we're going to talk about. It's the relationship between the sign and the furniture.
Yes. This is the golden rule of proportion. If you take absolutely nothing else away from this deep dive, take this one rule. Never measure the wall. Measure the furniture.
See, that is completely counterintuitive to me. I think most people's first instinct is to measure the empty space on the wall. They think I have 10 feet of blank wall so I can fit a 10-foot sign.
And that is the fatal mistake.
Why?
Because in a room, your eye doesn't anchor to the drywall. It anchors to the objects in the space. The sofa, the bed, the console table. These are the heavy items that define the room's layout.
Okay.
The rule states that A statement piece, like a neon sign, should occupy between 60 and 75% of the visual width of the furniture sitting directly beneath it.
Okay, let's pause and visualize that. 60 to 75%. That feels really large.
It feels aggressive until you actually see it installed.
Let's run the numbers on that. Because the source guide used a queen-size bed as the perfect example, and I think everyone listening can easily visualize a standard bed.
Right, so a standard queen bed is roughly 60 inches wide. If you're following that 60 to 75% rule, you're looking for a sign that is between 36 and 48 inches wide.
See, that's exactly where I would have bailed out as a shopper. 48 inches is 4 feet.
It is.
Putting a 4-foot-wide glowing object directly above my head sounds intense. My instinct would definitely be to go for the 30-inch one.
And if you did that, if you put 30 inches on a 60-inch bed, you're at 50%. That is the absolute borderline.
Some's not terrible.
It might look okay, but it won't look designed. It'll look like it's just floating there. The reason interior designers go for 60 to 75% is because it creates a visual column.
A visual column.
Yeah. The bed and the sign become one cohesive unit in your peripheral vision.
Visual cohesion. So the sign isn't just floating in random space, it's structurally tied to the bed itself.
Precisely. It grounds the light. If the sign is too small, the bed looks really bottom-heavy and the wall looks totally empty. You basically create this pyramid effect where all the heavy stuff is at the bottom and the top just fizzles out into nothing.
Right, you want a column, not a pyramid.
Exactly.
Does this apply everywhere, though? What about the living room?
The logic is exactly identical, but the scale gets even scarier for our timid decorator. Think about a standard 3-seater sofa. That's usually around 84 to 90 inches wide.
That's a massive piece of furniture. 7.5 feet of couch.
It is. So if you put a cheeky little 30-inch sign above a 90-inch sofa, it looks completely ridiculous. It looks like a postage stamp on an envelope.
Wow.
For a sofa that size, you really need to be pushing 50 to 60 inches for the sign just to stand up to the visual weight of the couch.
Visual weight is such a good term for this.
That
The couch is physically and visually heavy.
very heavy.
But the neon is visually light because it's literally made of light. So you need a wider spread of it to balance the heavy leather or the fabric sitting below it.
Exactly. You are constantly balancing mass with luminance.
Okay, so step one for you listening, get the tape measure out, measure your furniture and calculate 75%. But surely there's a bit of nuance here. I mean, a bedroom is for sleeping. A living room is for partying or hosting. Do we really treat them exactly the same?
And that is the variable that the pure math cannot solve on its own. It's what the industry calls the vibe check.
The vibe check. I feel like this is where personal taste officially clashes with interior design rules.
It totally does. The source material makes a really important distinction between a focal point and a subtle glow.
Okay.
The 75% rule is for when you want a true focal point. You want the sign to be the absolute main event. You want people to walk in and say, whoa.
Which makes total sense for a living room or a game room or maybe a basement bar.
Right. But in a bedroom, or maybe a small apartment where you're just trying to add some cozy atmosphere, you don't necessarily want the bright lights of Times Square directly above your headboard.
Yeah, I definitely don't want to get a sunburn from my decor while I'm just trying to read a book before sleep.
Exactly. So for bedrooms, the guide suggests you can cheat the rule down a bit. You can aim for that 24 to 36-inch range, even if you have a larger bed. But, and this is super key, if you go smaller, you have to be really careful about your placement.
How so?
You can't just center a small sign high up on the wall near the ceiling, or it looks completely lost. You might need to lower it closer to the headboard just to keep that visual connection tight.
Okay.
The closer it is to the furniture, the more connected it feels, even if the sign itself is on the smaller side.
That makes perfect sense. Proximity creates the relationship when the size can't.
Mhm.
Now, I want to pivot to the people listening who aren't just decorating a bedroom. We know we have a lot of entrepreneurs listening to this deep dive.
Yes.
People setting up cafes, boutiques, maybe trying to make a startup office look cool. Does the subtle glow rule work for a busy cafe?
Absolutely not. If you are running a business, you need to throw subtle completely out the window.
So it's back to go big or go home.
In a commercial setting, size isn't just an aesthetic choice, it is an economic choice. The source material actually calls undersized signage a lost opportunity.
That's a pretty heavy phrase for a piece of wall decoration. A lost opportunity.
But think about the environment you're dealing with. In your bedroom, there is zero competition. It's just a bed, a nightstand, and a blank wall.
Right.
But in a cafe or a boutique, you have customers moving around, you have tall racks of clothes, you have an espresso machine steaming, you have directional track lighting and music playing. There is just so much visual noise.
So a sign that looks super tasteful in a home becomes virtually invisible in a retail store.
Exactly. It gets completely swallowed by the chaos. The guide mentions that for businesses, the baseline, like the absolute minimum starting point, is usually 48 inches.
4 feet minimum.
Yes. And often premium providers like Start Neon find themselves having to aggressively talk business owners up in size.
Because the owner's just looking at the price tag.
Oh.
Or maybe they're scared it'll look tacky if it's too big.
The price tag is definitely a part of it, but it's mostly a problem of perspective. The owner is usually standing 2 feet away from the wall while they're imagining it or installing it. Up close, a 4-foot sign feels massive. It feels like a monster.
Yeah, 4 feet of light in your face is a lot.
But the customer isn't standing 2 feet away. They are standing at the entrance 20 or 30 feet away.
You have to design for the customer's perspective, not the installer's perspective.
Right. And in the age of Instagram, this is absolutely crucial. We really have to talk about the selfie utility of these dimensions.
It's a selfie utility. Okay, you need to explain that one.
If you are buying a custom neon sign for a business, you are more than likely doing it for marketing. You want people to take a picture in front of it and tag your location online.
Right, it's free advertising. It's user-generated content.
Exactly. But if the sign is too small, say 30 inches wide, and someone stands right in front of it to take a selfie?
Their head completely blocks the sign.
Yes. Or the sign just looks like this weird little glowing halo peeking out behind one ear. It doesn't actually frame the shot.
I hadn't even thought about that. You need the sign to be physically wider than the human body, plus some extra buffer space.
Exactly. You need it to be big enough to frame their head and their shoulders so that the text is fully readable around the person posing. If it's too small, it just gets cropped out or blocked by their body.
Wow.
If the sign doesn't fit in the Instagram square effectively, you have literally wasted your marketing budget.
That is a massive point for business owners.
Yeah.
Okay, so we know we generally need to go bigger than we think. But here is the logistical nightmare I see coming from all this.
Hit me.
We've been talking about width, 36 inches, 48 inches. But unlike a framed painting where a square is a square, the width of a neon sign depends entirely on what the sign actually says.
Yes. The content constraint. This is where the laws of physics officially crash the design party.
Right. Because if I want a sign that just says bar that's only 3 letters, I can easily make those letters huge.
Sure.
But if I want a sign that says, I don't know, a whole quote like, the best wines are the ones we drink with friends,
Yeah.
that is a ton of letters.
And this right here is the #1 friction point in custom neon design. People have a specific width in their mind, say they have exactly 40 inches to fit above a specific shelf, and they bring a 15-word quote.
And they try to just jam it in, like
Yeah.
someone cramming way too many clothes into a tiny suitcase.
They try their hardest. And to make it fit, you obviously have to shrink the font size down. But
Yeah.
here is the real deep dive technical part. Neon isn't ink. You cannot just hit Command- and print smaller.
Why not, though? I mean, with modern LED neon flex, can you just cut the material smaller?
No, you really can't, because neon is a physical illuminated tube. Whether it's traditional blown glass or the modern LED flex, it has a set stroke thickness. Usually that's around 6 to 8 millimeters, sometimes even thicker. You cannot bend that thick physical tube infinitely tight.
It has a turning radius, kind of like car steering.
Exactly like a turning radius. If you shrink the text down too much, the little loop inside a lowercase e or the circle in a physically cannot be formed by the tube, the gap just closes up completely.
So it just becomes a glowing blob?
A glowing, totally illegible blob. The light just bleeds straight across the negative space. So if you have a really long quote, you basically have a hard choice to make. You either make the sign massive, like 6 or 8 feet wide, just to keep the letter proportions right.
Which might not even fit on your physical wall.
Right. Or your other option is you break it into multiple lines. You stack the text.
You stack it.
Stacking is the absolute secret weapon of neon design. You put the best wines on the top line and with friends on the bottom line. Now you can easily fit it inside a 40-inch width, and the individual letters can stay big and clean and readable.
That seems so obvious when you say it out loud, but I bet people really resist it because they have this rigid, linear vision in their head. They want the sentence to read straight across like a book.
You do all the time. But you simply have to prioritize readability over a straight line layout. If you force a long sentence into a single line on a small wall, the letters will end up being 1 inch tall.
Which is pointless.
Completely. And that actually brings us to the other major technical formula mentioned in the notes, which I found super fascinating, the distance rule.
Yes, the 10-foot rule. I love when there's a specific formula I can just write down and use. Walk us through this one.
It's a standard rule used in commercial wayfinding and signage design. The rule is for every 10 feet of viewing distance, your letter height needs to be at least 1 inch tall for minimal readability.
Okay, let's apply that to the real world.
Yeah.
Let's go back to that busy coffee shop we talked about.
Sure.
If I'm a customer standing at the front door and the menu or the neon slogan is on the wall behind the counter,
That's probably, what, 20 or 30 feet away?
easily 30 feet in a good-sized shop. So applying the math, 30 feet divided by 10 is 3. You need letters that are 3 inches tall.
Right.
That actually doesn't sound too big to me. 3 inches is like the height of a standard Post-it note.
But wait, remember the key word in that rule? That is for minimal readability. That just means I can physically discern what the individual letters are if I squint and really focus. It doesn't mean the sign has any actual impact. It definitely doesn't mean it's giving off a cool vibe.
I see.
Yeah.
So that's the fine print size. That's the warning label size, not the headline size.
Exactly. If you want the sign to have punch, if you want it to act as a visual headline for the room, you usually want to double or even triple that minimum size. So
Wow.
for 30 feet, you really want letters that are 6 to 9 inches tall.
And suddenly your sign just got very, very wide.
Exactly. Because if you have 9 inch tall letters and your single word is coffee, that sign is going to be easily 4 feet wide.
Wow.
And that connects right back to the price tag and that Goldilocks panic we talked about earlier. The business owner realizes, oh, to make this readable, it actually needs to be 5 feet wide. And they get scared of the cost or the scale.
Yeah.
But if you shrink it down to save money, you are basically paying for a sign that no one can easily read.
Visibility equals effectiveness. If your customer has to squint to read your cool neon sign, you've already failed.
100%. It's really not just art at that point. It is a functional piece of communication.
So we've spent a lot of time on this deep dive, basically telling people to go bigger, go 75%, go 48 inches minimum. Is there ever a time where we need to look at the listener and say, stop? That is way too big. Put the tape measure away.
Definitely. And this brings us to the concept of room balance.
Okay. When exactly does a neon sign stop being a statement piece and start being a bully?
It becomes a bully when it is not the only star in the room. This happens a lot with gallery walls.
Oh, I know the look.
You know it right. A curated collection of framed prints, maybe a vintage mirror, a cool clock, and then a bright neon sign mixed right into the middle of it.
I see that on Pinterest all the time. It's a very specific, eclectic look.
And it's a great look when done right. But in that specific context, the neon is a supporting actor. It's part of an ensemble cast.
Right.
If you put a massive, blazing 48-inch sign right in the middle of a gallery wall, it creates so much intense light that it visually washes out absolutely everything else.
It completely obliterates the detail of the other art. You can't even see the framed photos because you're literally being blinded by the neon glare.
Right. So on a heavily decorated gallery wall, you actually want to break all the sizing rules we just talked about. You need to go smaller. Treat the neon like a subtle accent. But on the flip side, if you are a strict minimalist...
We're talking clean white walls.
Yeah.
Maybe one brutalist concrete planter and one chair that looks incredibly uncomfortable to sit in.
That is exactly the aesthetic, and that is your moment to go absolutely massive. In a minimalist space, a giant neon sign basically becomes architectural. It defines the entire room because there is literally nothing else fighting for your eye's attention.
So the less stuff you have on the walls, the bigger the sign can safely be.
That's a really great rule of thumb. Your ultimate goal is maximum harmony, not just maximum size for the sake of it.
I want to zoom out for a second here, because we've talked a lot about math and physics and rigid design rules. But there's a really interesting psychological element here that the source guide touched on, and I think it's the core reason so many people get this sizing stuff wrong. It's called the perception gap.
Yes. There's a quote in the material that sums this up perfectly. Screens distort perception, rooms reveal reality.
That line hit me hard when I read it. It sounds like something a tech philosopher would say, but it's really just about the dangers of online shopping.
It explains so much about modern consumer behavior. Just think about how we shop for this kind of stuff today. You're lying in bed on your phone, you're scrolling through a website, you see a picture of a cute neon sign that says dream.
And on my phone screen, that image is, what, 2 inches wide?
Right, 2 inches. And then you swipe to the next product, which happens to be a massive 6-foot wide custom sign. But on your phone,
It's also exactly 2 inches wide.
the digital thumbnail completely flattens everything into the same visual scale.
It absolutely destroys our innate sense of proportion. And because e-commerce sites almost always shoot products on pure white backgrounds, without any context, no furniture, no people standing there, you have no physical reference point. You have no banana for scale.
Exactly. So a tiny 20-inch sign and a massive 60-inch sign look absolutely identical when you're shopping online.
At least until the delivery box arrives at your front door.
And that is exactly why the custom advantage is so important here. The source material emphasizes that sticking to standard small, medium, or large presets is really dangerous for your decor. You really want to be ordering by the exact mathematical dimension you need.
You want to be able to say, I need this to be exactly 42 inches wide.
Exactly. It's the difference between buying a cheap suit off the rack at a department store and getting one custom tailored to your body. When you specify the exact dimension to fit your specific furniture using that 75% rule, it just clicks.
It just works.
You might not even consciously know why it looks so much better, but your brain immediately recognizes the correct proportion.
It feels native to the physical space.
It feels highly intentional.
Yeah.
And honestly, that is what separates high-end professional design from something you bought on impulse at 2 in the morning.
So to kind of wrap this all up for you listening, if you're eyeing a blank spot on your wall right now, let's give you the definitive checklist. What are the concrete steps to avoid this whole Goldilocks nightmare?
Okay, let's recap the main variables you need to hit. One step away from the blank wall, look down at your furniture, physically measure the width of the bed, the sofa, or the retail desk.
And step 2.
Calculate your target zone. Aim for that 60 to 75% width for a strong focal point. If it's a 60-inch bed, you want a 40-inch sign. And honestly, don't be scared of how big that number sounds.
Step 3, the content reality check.
Right. If you have a really long quote, you have to accept that you either need a massive physical width or you need to intelligently stack the text into multiple lines. Don't try to force a long linear text into a small space because it will just become unreadable. Always remember the physical stroke thickness of the two.
And finally, the last step.
The vibe check. If you're outfitting a business, go significantly bigger than you think you need. 48 inches is your absolute minimum for visual impact and for that crucial selfie readability. But if it's just a cozy bedroom, you can relax the rules a bit for softer, more intimate glow.
As the guide says, too small fades, too large overwhelms, but the right size transforms.
That really is the perfect mantra for all of this.
You know, before we go today, I have a lingering thought about all this. We've been talking specifically about neon signs for 20 minutes, but this whole screen distortion thing we just discussed, it applies to literally everything we buy, doesn't it?
No, absolutely everything. It's honestly a modern crisis of perception.
I'm just sitting here thinking about the rug I just bought online last week, or the lamp sitting on my desk right now.
Yeah.
We spend so much of our lives curating our physical spaces by looking through 6-inch glass screens that I really wonder if we are actively losing our biological ability to understand 3D physical space.
I strongly think we are. We are rapidly losing our spatial intuition. We judge objects by how good they look as an isolated digital thumbnail, not how they actually function and breathe in a three-dimensional room.
Right.
We are essentially buying JPEGs, but we have to actually live inside physical rooms.
That is highly profound and, frankly, slightly terrifying to think about. So maybe the homework for you listening today isn't just to measure your wall for a neon sign. Maybe it's to take a physical tape measure to absolutely everything sitting in your online shopping cart right now.
Verify the physical reality before you click that buy button.
A terrifying thought for my credit card, but probably a very necessary one for the harmony of my living room.
Very necessary.
Well, thanks for diving into the math of light with us today. Grab your tape measures. Please don't trust the digital thumbnails, and we will see you on the next deep dive.